All right, so today we're diving into something huge. We're looking at two totally different ideas about our DNA. The very code that makes us who we are, and how we as a species are going to shape our own evolution. And trust me, this is way bigger than just science. It's about the future of what it even means to be human.
So, it all boils down to this one massive question. How are we going to write our next chapter? Is it going to be a story of meticulous, calculated design? Or is it going to be a story about unlocking some kind of hidden potential that's been sleeping inside us this whole time?
These two paths really couldn't be more different. I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got this idea of editing the code, treating our DNA like it's a computer program that we can debug and upgrade in a lab. And on the other side, the idea of tuning the signal, viewing our DNA more like an antenna that actually responds to our consciousness and the frequencies all around us. So let's dig into that first path. Okay, let's dive into the manufactured path. The core idea here is that DNA is a physical blueprint. It's a set of instructions that we can, and maybe even should, control directly. This path basically sees the body as this incredibly sophisticated machine. And if you want to improve the machine, well, you've got to get your hands dirty and work on the hardware itself. Now, what's fascinating is that this desire to re-engineer humanity, it's not new at all. It actually has some pretty dark and complicated roots. You have thinkers like Herbert Spencer, Francis Galton, and Cesare Lombroso, who kind of laid the groundwork for the whole eugenics movement. They argued that society could be perfected by controlling who gets to have kids, essentially treating people like livestock you'd breed for specific traits. So fast forward to today, and those early kind of crude ideas have evolved into some seriously sophisticated medical technologies. One of the biggest is preimplantation genetic testing, or PGT. Put simply, it's a way to screen embryos that were created through IVF for any genetic problems before they're ever transferred into the uterus. And PGT isn't just one single test. It's more like a whole suite of tools. You've got PGT-A, which checks to make sure there's the right number of chromosomes, which helps lower the risk of miscarriage. Then there's PGT-M, which zooms in on specific single-gene diseases, things like cystic fibrosis. And PGT-SR is for couples who have known structural issues in their chromosomes that can cause problems. The process itself is just incredibly precise and controlled. An embryologist takes a tiny sample, just a few cells, from a 5-day-old embryo. That embryo is then frozen. The cells get sent off to a lab for intense analysis, and based on those results, a doctor and the parents can choose an embryo to transfer. It's very, very deliberate, very lab-based. And this is where things get really cutting edge, and also really controversial. It's called polygenic embryo screening, or PES. This goes way beyond those single gene disorders we just talked about. PES actually calculates a risk score for super complex conditions that are influenced by thousands of genes. We're talking heart disease, diabetes, even schizophrenia. The idea is to select embryos that have the lowest genetic chance of developing these diseases way down the road. But here's the thing, even within the scientific world, there are some major concerns. As the European Society of Human Genetics points out here, these risk scores, they are not destiny, not even close. Your genes might give you a nudge in one direction, but your lifestyle, your diet, your environment, all of that plays a massive role. The score is just a starting point. It's definitely not the final word. Okay, so take everything we just talked about, and let's flip it completely on its head. Let's talk about path 2, the sovereign path. This whole perspective says that DNA is way more than just a physical code. It's an antenna, a receiver, and a transmitter of information. And the key to unlocking it isn't in some lab. It's actually within our own consciousness. And this quote is the perfect way to get into this mindset. And get this, it's from Federico Faggin, the guy who literally invented the first microprocessor. For a pioneer of the digital age to say something like this, it's pretty radical. He's arguing that consciousness is fundamental. It's the source code of reality, not just some random thing our brains cook up. And that idea is the absolute bedrock of the sovereign path. And this slide just lays it all out, right? You've got these two competing models. The first path sees the body as a machine made of matter. The second sees it as an antenna made of energy, a quantum transducer that translates information from this field of consciousness into our biology. In this view, our DNA is constantly, and I mean constantly, listening to the signals we send it. The scientific theory that sort of powers this path is often called wave genetics.
Researchers like Peter Garyaev propose that DNA doesn't just respond to chemicals, it also responds to information carried on waves, like sound and light. The idea is that our genetic code can actually be influenced by resonant frequencies. And a really specific example you hear about all the time in these circles is the 528 hertz frequency. People call it the love frequency, and the proponents of wave genetics claim that this specific sound vibration resonates with our DNA in a really unique and potentially healing way. So you're probably asking, okay, how on earth could sound fix DNA? Well, the theory goes something like this. First, certain frequencies create resonance that matches the geometry of the DNA, which helps it unwind so it can repair itself naturally. Second, these harmonic sounds are said to harmonize the little light emissions, called biophotons, that our cells use to talk to each other, basically canceling out the noise from damage. And finally, all this healing information is transmitted through the special, structured water that's all around our DNA, which acts as a perfect conductor. Let's go back to Federico Faggin, because he puts it in this wild way. He describes our body as a drone that's being operated by a conscious quantum field. He argues that your actual experiences, your feelings, what philosophers call qualia, they aren't actually generated inside your brain. They exist out there, in the field, and your body is just the vehicle tuning into them. It's a truly mind-bending idea that completely flips the script on where you are actually located. So here we are. We've got two paths, both aiming for some kind of human perfection. But wow, their methods and what they think perfection even means, they could not be further apart. This is really the choice that's standing right in front of us. Let's just look at their toolkits side by side. The manufactured path uses what you could call heavy tools, physical, invasive technologies like CRISPR and embryo biopsies. The sovereign path, on the other hand, uses subtle tools, energetic things like sound frequencies and, most importantly, the focused intent of our own mind. And their endgames? This is where it gets really epic. The logical end of the manufactured path could be something like a technological singularity, where we merge with machines, upload our minds, and basically outsource our own evolution to AI. The endgame for the sovereign path? It's the ancient wisdom of know thyself, achieving this godlike creative power by mastering our inner world to unlock our own biology. Now, we have to be super clear about something here. The scientific ground these two paths stand on is very different. One is firmly planted in mainstream clinical science, with tons and tons of peer-reviewed data to back it up. The other draws from the very edges of quantum biology and fuses it with ideas from metaphysics and spirituality. They're really operating in two separate scientific worlds. And that brings us to our final question, the one I really want you to walk away with. Is the future of human evolution a technical project for us to design and build in a lab? Or is it a latent potential? Something already inside every one of us, just waiting to be unlocked. The path we choose is going to define not just our future, but the very nature of what it means to be conscious.